Hello, internet friends! My name is Bay. Welcome back to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass, First Impressions coverage. We continue with the Priest coverage. Now with the healers, we have the Holy Priest. And insert obvious holy crap joke here. Do you know how the joke about Holy Priest for a long time, the joke, the community perception of it and whatnot, that it basically is the jack of all trades, master of none, and you have a big old bag of tricks, but you don't necessarily... You have like throughput, you have single target healing, you have your serendipity stuff and your big old power words and stuff like that. So get a bigger bag because you've got more stuff in that bag, primarily in the DPS category, but a couple more things are also being added to there as well. But if your bag's already pretty full, get a secondary bag, just duct tape it to the side, because this is what we're going to go over in this video with the Holy Priest. Definitely not as melancholy and downtrodden as the previous video. And of course, we'll go over the degenerate, toxic, complete scums of the earth discipline priests in the next video. But today, of course, is Holy Priest. If you want to go over the entire VOD or the dungeon, where I definitely try to be a bit more aggressive than I probably should have been in certain situations, but also spec'd in a way that I guess maybe helped that out. The VOD is linked for the dungeon down below, as well as the Warcraft logs, if you're curious about the damage and healing outputs. But we'll talk about some of that today too. But that's all linked in the video description box down below, or of course on my channel guide, which has everything coagulated and collected together for this expansion's testing and the previous two. But as are digital, if you want to support what I do here on the channel in a more physical sense and get yourself some of that merch, I am wearing the Little Wolf and Tiny Pupper Greymane. You can't really see. There he goes. Pikachu is still hiding in the back right now because he's ashamed of that he wants to play Shadow Priest in Shadowlands and he can't. So he doesn't have on a nice shirt like I do. But these are by Fabelina. There's other designs there as well, like the Little Fire Lord, for example. If you're looking, look at him. Look at him. But these are by Fabelina. She's done a bunch of designs with us, of course, if you want to look at all those and grab a hoodie or a shirt or a tank top or a sweater or whatever have you and support what I do in a physical sense, please, if you do so, send me a tweet or hit me up in Discord when you do receive your physical items on your bow day, or not. Put them on your dog, on your cat, whatever you do. But thank you very much for those that support me in that regard. We have some more designs on the horizon, and thank you for choosing to wear any of my junk. But thank you very much. All right. The Holy Priest. Now, I have to just go off the bat and say it because you're going to see on the bars this whole time, and I might just cast it in the background randomly. Circle of Healing is back baseline. There's not a talent for Circle of Healing to get it. There's something else that we'll talk about, but Circle of Healing has returned to you. It is back baseline for the Holy Priest. Wow. You also have Powered Shield, also back for the Holy Priest, which is quite nice. And we'll go over spell coefficients and things like that in a little bit here. But two returning things. It's not like they're new. Blizzard has a tendency of giving you things back that you used to have. But hey, I mean, would you rather not have them, I guess? Another thing you're also getting back that you might not really care about at all is Mind Soothe. Yeah. Don't everyone jump up at once. So Mind Soothe works on humanoids and dragonkin for 20 seconds, and they reduce their aggro radius on you by 10 yards. There's also something interesting for overall priests where Fade is getting a new rank. Currently, it's not yet implemented, where fading will also reduce your aggro radius. So you could fade and walk by things. Is that Wordup? Oh, it's Carol running around. They're still powwowing in Discord right now after our dungeon run. After the dungeon run, there's like another 20 or so minutes of like talking about the game and priests and this kind of thing and that other thing. I think we get into like Covenant weeds, but at the end of the recent dungeon run, it's like an extra little podcast. We want to go listen to a bunch of content creators and guide writers. I ran the dungeon today with Publik, who is part of the Shadow Priest community. So if you're curious about that and you want to hear what he had to say and our discussions during the dungeon run, that's of course the dungeon run. You can link that down below. But yeah, Fade will reduce your aggro range. And then Mind Soothe could be good for skipping trash packs in dungeons, but it's only humanoids and dragonkin. We're in the Shadowlands. Everything is dead. So I don't know if there's any dead dragonkin. I don't know. Maybe. Mass Dispel, this is Debate. This is actually not a new rank of Mass Dispel. They just tore, they in this case being Blizzard, they tore out the removing immunities from Mass Dispel and put it as a rank up spell. Power Infusion is back. And I went over this more in the Shadow Priest video, but it does bear mentioning. It's 25% haste for 20 seconds, 2-minute cooldown, off the GCD to cast it. There is some discussion that the Shadow Priest community brought up by not really good for them, but it's added utility in your overall toolkit. Power Infusion will always be cast either on yourself, if you want to blast, healing, or damage, or on whoever best utilizes this additional cooldown for a momentary burst window or something therein. It is something you don't have to always use for yourself. You could be selfish with it, or you could be selfless with it. Time it up with someone else that actually gets a lot of benefit from this. For a burst window, doing extra damage, you bring this to give it to your DPS. Why not? If you're in a guild that wants to auction these off night after night, like Focus Magic and old school Dark Intent and stuff, then by all means, sure. But most players will not do that kind of junk. So there is that. However, the other note here is that there is no other holy rank ups. As you see, this is 52, 54, 58. There's no 56. So I'm not sure if there's going to be something at 56, for example, for Holy Priest coming in here. Unknown. Every single class and spec we've seen so far has been getting 4 different rank up passives at 52, 54, 56, and 58. And then 60, of course, is Covenants. But that is not the case still for the Holy Priest yet. There's a bunch more things to go through here. We're going to reposition ourselves because we're going to be showing off some macros and things as well as we do in any healer video. Because there is more DPS for the Holy Priest. And by more, I mean quite a bit more. So, by default right now on live, you have the Holy Fire. You got to live with that Smite action going on, right? But now, you have Mind Blast. You also have Shadow Word Death. You also have Shadow Word Pain. Also, you have, where was it? Mind Sear. Where is it? Right here. So, your overall DPS kit has Holy Fire, Holy Word Chastise, Smite, Holy Nova, Mind Blast, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, Mind Sear. Before anything else, it's just base core kit, right? You also, of course, can take Halo or Divine Star for an additional, extra thing. I took Divine Star for the dungeon run because, again, I was trying to be super offensive. So there is a couple of things to be said here. There is a lot of additional damage you can do, and arguably, I would say that the Holy Priest DPS rotation might actually be one of the most complete DPS rotation. There was a Shadow Priest in chat today were sad because they're like, oh, they've got a better rotation than even we do. And I guess, I mean, it's a binary sort of flat rotation where you just hit the buttons off of cooldown and keep your dot active, right? I get it. Well, obviously you have the Smite into Chastise synergy there where that cools down with the Serendipity back end. The one thing you're going to notice, of course, here is that, Holy Fire has a cast time. That's the first big one. And I would first off say it's actually a good one, but I'm going to pivot real quick and talk about Shadow Word Death just for a moment. There's obviously no synergy here with gaining insanity because you're not a Shadow Priest. So it just deals damage. It obviously will deal damage, but it hurts you. It does the exact same damage it does to the target to you as well. But now you, of course, you have Powered Shield, so you can keep yourself shielded, keep yourself renewed. Not a big deal. I did have some pretty juicy Chastise Shadow Word Deaths in the dungeon run, where they're just two big, heavy-hitting instant abilities as I was moving along. So I would just Chastise and then Death. Chastise to get it lower, and Shadow Word Death hopefully to snipe the killing blow. If it actually kills the target, you don't take the damage. So that was kind of a fun utility, because it's not an execute anymore, but it still has a bit of the execute, you don't hurt yourself in it. But Hammer of Wrath exists, and Holy Paladins are going to slam that thing all the time in Avenging Wrath. They learn that as a passive rank up skill to always throw hammers. But we'll see. The other news about this is that Holy Fire no longer has the resets and stacking component. However, The cast time was removed to be a 1.5 second cast time, reduced by haste, as you see there. Not a hugely long cast time, but to compensate this and to give, in a way, a little bit more damage oomph. Granted, again, you still have your Shadow Word Pain, so your dot extra stackiness is just in SWP. The reset mechanic being gone now, Holy Fire is 150% spell power on the initial hit, up from 50%. The initial hit was tripled. It hits very hard in comparison to the current version, which is instant, just kind of puts a dot up. The dot's damage still remains the same, but the initial slam jam hit of Holy Fire is pretty big. Looking over at the dungeon log real quick here, over the course of the entire dungeon, even including AoE and doing some dumb Holy Nova, Divine Star, gobbledygook, and cross-dotting Shadow Word Pains, my top ability was Holy Fire at 30, just shy 33% of all of my damage in the entire run. Next was Shadow Word Pain at 21%, then Divine Star at 18, Mind Blast at 7, Chastise at 6.5, and then down from there. Shadow Word Death actually doesn't do that much damage because it's not used that often. 6%, Smite as a filler was just barely 5%, and Holy Nova was at 3%, just about 3%. So your heaviest hitting ability is going to be Holy Fire, and then your next one for the cast and the GCD is Shadow Word Pain, which is free. Shadow Word Death is also free, but again, your health is kind of resource there. And Holy Fire does a little bit of, it takes a little bit of mana, but 100 mana at 10,000 is whatever, right? It obviously will scale up, it's the same ratio. And then Chastise came in there at like the next best one, with Smite, of course, being your weakest hitting ability. But the combination of Holy Fire and Shadow Word Pain, a lot of damage. And virtually free. Obviously, this is free, and this costs nothing. So a lot of extra oomph in your damage kit for the Holy Priest. I actually felt a little overwhelmed sometimes. I have so many instant casts that I was just running around throwing instant cast all the time during the trash packs like this, and then you get like one big cast, like, you know, go boom and then bam. But there's a lot of instant cast utility there, especially with Holy with Circle of Healing back as well. Holy Nova is still kind of a meme. On that note, however, this leads me to talk a little bit about the spell ranks and ranks they're in. So Powered Fortitude and every other raid buff in the game now is 5%. So this is the same thing for Int and for Battle Shout. And same thing with the debuffs, of course. They don't scale the same way, but still. So you lost a little bit of your vitality increasing stamina, but this is just with the new number squish. It's relatively the same amount of power, I guess, when the actual stats are a little smaller there. You've also got, yeah, number-wise. So currently for Holy Priest, you have a plus 25% damage aura on many spells. This includes Shadow Word Death, which actually hits a little bit harder than Shadow Priest's Shadow Word Death. But I have a sneaking suspicion that SWD will be hooked up to their Madness Mastery. It just makes sense, right? And then you have 40% more healing on many of your healing spells, if not every single heal behind the scenes. Just, I don't know why it's like that. I mean, they'll just put it in the baseline, but that's been the same way for a while for Holy Priest. The giant, huge aura that you have listing every ability, and even ones you never have anymore because they're different specs, but that's all different. Also, Prayer of Mending. Has a rank 2, taking it back to instant cast. It should have never been a cast type in the first place, but at least it's back to an instant cast. So your Prayer of Mending, back to a instant cast heal that, of course, bounces around. Good stuff there. Holy Nova also has another rank where it reduces the GCD by 0.5 seconds. So it still goes down with your GCD, of course, but it allows you to spam Holy Nova a lot. The spell animation is still very small. It hits 12 yards away from you, but doesn't really render that far. Yeah, there it is. See, like, it doesn't render anywhere near as far as it might land. But sure, I mean, it works with your Echo of Light, your Mastery. That hasn't changed or anything like that. but it's kind of silly. Holy Nova still does more damage offensively than it does healing. It's a silly spell, because if you're going to actually do AoE now, you're going to Mind Sear. Holy Nova costs mana, and you can dunk your mana on this spell. Mind Sear, which obviously requires you to channel the spell, Mind Sear costs nothing. So you can, it still says it generates insanity, but obviously you don't have any of that. It's just a tooltip error because it's not flagged properly. But if you want to do actual AoE damage, maybe some cross dotting with your Shadowward Pains that are also free, and then you can use some Mind Sear. That's again, your toolbox is holds a bursting. All right, what else we got here? Sort of healing baseline. This goes into spell costs and some changes here. So, Circle of Healing, if I can find all these things, all the yellow icons. Circle of Healing, everything else, the cooldown range, healing all remains the same. However, the cost went up from 2.5% of your mana to 3.3% of your mana. Still does the target +4. Flash Heal. This is the same thing we saw if you watch the Holy Paladin coverage. We saw a very similar situation with them as well. So Flash Heal, mana cost went up from 3% to 3.6%. So up 0.6. The healing did not change. So same ratio of healing, but it's now more expensive. Heal, however, or how it was known back in the day, Greater Heal. Heal got buffed rather hilariously. So the mana cost went up and the heal went up. So now it costs 2.4% base mana, up from 1.9. A little more expensive, 0.5% more. But its spell power on live right now is 175% spell power. It's 210 now. To compare this to Serenity, which is your big holy word single target, nearly lay on hands-esque kind of, not really, but still a big chunky heal with the serendipity stuff with heal and flash heal. This heal hitting for 3.3 thousand, heal is 1.4 thousand. So a little less than a third, but that's a big bump up from how heal is right now, not feeling very oomphy, and just kind of spam flash heal, right? So the same kind of thing we saw with Holy Paladin, where their Holy Light got buffed and their Flash of Light kind of got nerfed. So less Flash of Light, less Flash heal, more of your big heal. And I did definitely try to get heal off a lot in the dungeon. This does lead me to a bit of a side note. Echo of Light with heal being stronger means that your mastery has more benefit from actually dumping your big heal. And it makes Trail of Light that little bit stronger as well, because the two targets you're hitting them from more. Obviously, the main target gets more. The 35% of the replicated healing to the previous, like, Beacon of Lightish target will still have a bigger heal because heal is stronger. However, Renew didn't change. Still 1.8% of your mana, still has the 23% instant, and still has, if I can freaking find it, and still has the same 115% of your mana over 15. Mana? 150% of your spell power. That one's a pretty good one. Prayer of Healing got a little bit harder to cast. It is a little bit stronger. All these freaking spells look all the same. Prayer of Healing now is 5% mana, up from 4.5. So a little bit more expensive. Because again, they're trying to push you into just like big single target heals a little bit to be more mana efficient. And looking at Powered Shield real quick. Powered Shield is the way this works, because it's a absorb, it factors in versatility. It's 2 times your spell power times verse with some extra numbers in there at 3.4% of your mana cost. But looking at just the tooltip ratios here, for 340 mana at 940 damage absorbed, your flash heal is 360 mana, just above that at, 3.6% versus 3.4%. But flash heal is only 890 healing, whereas Powered Shield's a little higher than that. And obviously will scale with your verse and your spell power, because as the absorb scales, and not taking damage, of course, is a little bit more important than healing the damage after it happens. So I was doing a bit of like, Renew with your Prayer of Mending bouncing around there, and then of course putting your Powered Shield up as well, sort of on the move, and then you get again another instant, and then another instant, and then another instant, and you see what I mean? Like, you have a lot of that movement-y tools coming into play here. And your holy words overall None of them were changed. They're still the same ratios you have them on live. Nothing changed therein. The other thing real quick here, but that's why I kind of brought up that your Prayer of Healing is going to be a little more expensive, but obviously still a really strong heal. The new talent is Prayer Circle, which I thought was a tier bonus at some point, but we couldn't find where it was. So if you know what this is from, I really think we've seen this before. Using COH, though, reduces the cast time of POH by 30% within 8 seconds. So using your instant cast heal then gives you your cast time heal a little bit faster. So it gives you an option for a little bit more of that AoE throughput rotational style healing. Of course, Binding Heal remains here with the Serendipity bonuses and Surge of Light, which I ran in the dungeon because I was being more offensive, and having the instant cast Flash of Lights, or Flash Heals rather. Oops, sorry, wrong spell. Was what I did in the dungeon anyway, right? I was spending a lot of smites. So I was racking up 2 charges of Surge of Light so that I could blast heals on instance and then top people off and then go back to blasting. So the synergy there is obviously going to be depending on what you're doing, which is sort of how all these talents work. A lot of Holy's talents are really good, except the 45 row, which definitely gives us a bit more of the feedback point here. There's still no Serendipity benefit for Divine Star. There's nothing for Halo. And there's no changes for Benediction. And obviously the Benediction change, of course, is the quality of life from Prayer of Mending being instant cast. That obviously changes things a little bit there too. And then there's synergy with Enduring Renewal, kind of Benediction kind of stuff for that overall, like, just blanketing kind of triage healing you can do. That's still there. I still put forward that these 3 should have at least a touch of Serendipity cooldown, because normally when you're wasting a GCD for this damage and healing spell, it doesn't have anything else that works with your core kit, which works with your other heals that you want to use, or your offensive motions there, which is the weird part about how these still don't have anything with them. Which I guess the argument is that they both do damage and healing, I suppose, but they take a little bit of oomph away, and over the course of an entire encounter, how much Serendipity potential cooldown reduction do you lose in your holy words by using these abilities? I'm not entirely sure, especially if you take like Holy Word Salvation, for example, or if you're going with Apotheosis or Light of the Naru. These are all, they have huge Serendipity Holy Word synergies, but these don't. Just kind of feels like they're out of place in the overall kit. But nothing else has changed in the overall, other than the baseline stuff that has been sorted through here. I will say that like Angel's Mercy didn't get buffed or changed at all, so the Desperate Prayer is still kind of that weird last stand Healthstone kind of synergy there, but no DR for the Holy Priest. There's no actual direct damage reduction. You still have your Focused Will, but it requires you to get meleeed in the face or wherever, all over the place. But there's no actual synergy there for raid encounters. You can always take Perseverance and have the permanent 10% less damage taken on you all the time. Sure, just gonna cast Renew on yourself every 12 to 15 seconds to keep it up there after pandemics, and you can take 10% damage all the time. But Angelic Feather is so strong for you not being as mobile, because you no longer have the ability to take your, I'm not gonna grip Amani Harvest here real quick, but you don't have your Leap of Faith to pull you to someone anymore. You don't have that utility. So the offset to use, I have it on a cast at player macro there on my mouse, but to cast your feathers for someone else or for you is super important. But that might change with Covenant stuff, because a lot of Covenants have mobility tools. So maybe you don't need to take Angelic Feather all the time, and you can take Perseverance or Angel's Mercy, a little bit more self-survivingness. Even if, again, I kind of wonder why this doesn't just add like a DR to it, so you have a choice of the passive lower DR or the on-demand higher DR or mobility. Because mobility is also damage reduction in that regard too, because getting out of things or moving between boss fights or where you gotta move, obviously it's way you take less damage. To wrap up again real quick here, the one thing I wanted to touch on is some macros, because healing, and as you see, I obviously have not every spell is on my bars, because all the spells are down here as well too. I made help harm macros for a lot of things. This is the one for @player Angelic Feather. Super simple, not a big deal on that one. But then I tied 4 different heals to 4 different offensive spells. So I obviously have the ability to cast Prayer of Healing if I cast it on me, or Mind Sear if I cast it on an enemy. So these kind of look like this. These are the really simple ones that I use. This is one for Chastise, obviously requires a target, so I just kind of have it as Chastise here, or as Heal for the target that I actually cast it on. A little more in-depth ones, for example, are the one we made for Renew, which we did for mouse over macros for Renew. So I can just mouse over this target, put a Renew on, or mouse over a target that's offensively, and you can do Shadowed Pain. You can't use it on target dummies because they count as neutral. They're not offensive targets. But you can make mouse over macros and @target macros and things of this nature to make your abilities do help harm. So when you're healing someone, you have someone targeted that's friendly, you use a healing spell. And then, of course, when it's someone that's an enemy, you cast your DPS spell. Very, very, I think, efficient for healers to have this sort of stuff built in, because if you didn't, I would need obviously 5 more bindings for the other abilities. It also lowers your reaction time required to both do damage and do healing. You gotta be careful with putting things on with cooldowns, for example. With this one, for I have the cooldown on Chastise, but there's no cooldown on Heal. Don't want to put 2 different cooldown abilities on the same button. I don't have anything bound like I show there for Circle of Healing, because the cooldown there would make things a little bit wonky with showing the tooltip that shows where the cooldown is. But you always know the heal behind the cooldown is obviously always up, but the DPS portion of that is not. Right? Like Smite is always up, but if I want to use it for Prayer of Mending, then it gives me the Prayer of Mending cooldown there because I'm showing it as Prayer of Mending. But that is another little small tip for you if you are curious about how to better control your key bindings and be a little more efficient with them as a healer. If you didn't know about them, of course, that is that for you. And you can just obviously pause the video and take a screenshot and then copy and paste it yourself. That's the Holy Priest. I think it's actually a pretty nice little step forward. Again, could use a little bit more nudge in the defensive category or the Serendipity 45 category, but Holy Priest normally has a problem of just not doing enough damage or being good at everything but not specializing in one thing. And again, Discipline exists where you're always doing damage and then usually reducing damage ingoing by absorbs and things of that nature, at least in the past, has been more prevalent as way better. But we'll see if the Holy Priest can actually shine. And being able to blast a bunch of damage in the overall dungeon run, to compare, we had a run previously with Arresto Shaman. Cyous wasn't like really being super aggro, but the overall dungeon run, he only did about 4% of our overall group damage. Me being offensive this whole run, I did like 8.2% of our run's damage. And like I said before, overall damage was Holy Fire being 33%. So a big button. Even if you're not even going to do a lot more else, Holy Fire Shadowed Pain is going to add a lot of extra damage to your group compositions because of how they've been changed. And I guess on that note, I didn't talk about healing numbers. Healing was still, over the course of the dungeon, Echo of Light was my highest source, but they're all pretty close together. Echo of Light, Renew, Holy Word Serenity, Circle of Healing, and Power Word Shield were all pretty close, between 15 and then 10%-ish on all of those abilities. But then again, there's so many other heals that I was using there, Prayer of Mending, and trying to actually do big heals and utilizing that with Divine Star and Prayer of Healing I did some Holy Nova healing, yikes. But Circle of Healing and then Prayer of Healing together being really good tools. But also I ran again with Salvation, so that is a lot of additional. I cast on every single boss, so lots of Renew healing there, of course, where you don't normally cast a lot of Renew. But yeah, it felt good. Let me know what you think in the comments down below of the Holy Priest. Again, if you want to support me in a more physical sense, check out the link down below for my Designed by Humans shop if you want to pick up any apparel and then support what I do here, and then support the artists that I work with because they make these and then I bring them to you. And supporting me there allows me to pay the artists to make awesome shirts and designs for you guys. But there's a lot out there that Fabelina has made, as well as a couple other artists we've worked with over the years. But next up, we have Disciplined Priest. Thank you very much for listening and or watching. My name's been Bay, as I think it always has been for a very long time. I will see you all in the next Priest video.